Start off with thank you for AIMA for hosting this panel, and let me welcome my esteemed panelists. Immediately to my right, Mr. Sanjay Kumar Singh, who is the Director, Strategy and External Relations with Jindal Steel. I have Mr. Satish Reddy, who is the Vice Chairman and Pro-Chancellor of Aditya University, and Mr. Sanjay Narayan, who is the Chief General Manager, Zonal Office for the Union Bank of India in Delhi. So, very diverse and interesting panel. So, I hope that we'll have an interesting discussion on a topic which is shielding India's economic growth and navigating policy disruption. I think we're pretty much living through this right now. It's extremely topical, and I think very dynamic since it keeps changing every day as we read the newspapers. But I think we have to look at that in the context of course, what is India's vision, and how do we navigate the journey towards our vision, which was obviously articulated very well by the Prime Minister in terms of 2047, and that's where we are all trying to work towards. And then we have this kind of turbulence as we are on that journey, where suddenly we find that the rules are changing. Many of the things we took for granted in terms of global policy, economic order, trade policies, etc., are no longer true. And how do we navigate this? How do we look at our markets, our supply chains, and our access to capital and resources, etc. So I think it requires a lot more agility, a lot more foresight to move in this environment. And then if we add to the geopolitical turbulence, there's also the regulatory turbulence, which is also something that the industry was dealing with in terms of earlier, the environmental challenges, the access to markets could be restricted because of compliance requirements. And I don't think that's gone completely away, and that still stays relevant. So that's the context in which we are sitting today, and we will have this discussion. So what do we do? And I think, one of the three things that, seem to be emerging in this environment is one that we need to diversify significantly more than what we have done historically. I think diversification in terms of markets where we sell, including markets that we may not have targeted historically. So we reduce our concentration risk in a way. We diversify our supply chains. We've seen the issues coming through because of over-reliance on certain suppliers for materials, for components, for minerals, etc. And then, of course, the whole question of how do we strengthen our domestic economy, our domestic growth, to be more resilient to deal with the global headwinds whenever we face. So I think those are the sort of broad themes that I think are emerging. And let me start with Mr. Singh in terms of, he comes from, of course, the steel industry. Steel industry is, we all understand, is critical for any economy. And also it is very India-centric in terms of the production and markets. But there are issues in terms of, how will this grow? What does it need to do in the context of also exports, because we want to grow the industry. So how do you see, the trade barriers impacting your industry, Mr. Singh, in particular? And what kind of strategies do you think are going to be relevant as we move forward there?
Namaskar, ladies and gentlemen. Let me put the broad picture first. I mean, a couple of terms you would have heard in last 2 days repeatedly: Viksit Bharat, Atmanirbhar, Swadeshi. So these three are the cornerstones of our current political and economic thinking. Steel is cardinal to development of the country. steel contributes 2% in terms of GDP growth directly, but indirectly through construction sector, automobile sector, white goods sector. I mean, it has multiplier effect. Steel in India has direct relation with the GDP. Elasticity of steel demand with GDP growth is 1.7 to 1.8 times. When steel growth, when GDP growth goes up by 1%, steel growth goes up by 1.7 to 1.8%. You can see that from the figures as well. 10 years back, we were consuming 75 million tons. Last year, we consumed 156 million tons. In a span of 10 years, that has been the growth. And where does this 156 million of steel go into? Around 65% in construction and infrastructure sector. Then automobile sector, white goods sector, electrical sector, and so on. But steel is a raw material based sector. That's why, I mean, it has linkages with the external market, with the supply chains. And it has its own challenges as well. Number one, raw material is one, because we do not have entire mix of raw material available within the country. We have iron ore. We have some other materials, but the major raw material, which is the coking coal, that is not available in the country. For that, we have to rely on the external markets. So that's why supply chains becomes important. And competitiveness also becomes very important in this kind of a world where the price is the determinant factor in whether the good is going to be purchased by other economies or not. So competitiveness comes from inputs which is getting into it. So within our own country as well. So a couple of challenges which I'll mention about. Iron ore we have in abundance in the country in terms of resource. But reserve is only 20% of that. So how to unlock that? That is another challenge. So in this kind of dynamic, unpredictable world, navigating it is, for steel sector, is not very difficult because we primarily are dependent on our own consumption. In fact, if I can say that for the Indian economy as well, that is one thing which is hedging our economy also from the external turmoils which are happening, which are going on all over the world. For steel as well, last year, for instance, we produced 151 million tons of steel in the country, consumed 156 million tons. We consume more than what we produced. Our export is to the tune of around 4 to 5%. Last year it was down. So that is the kind of a landscape where we are. And but external markets are important to us. There are certain steel products which we don't produce. They are imported, and some we produce which are required by the outside world as well.
So let me ask, you made 2-3 interesting points, of course. One is that sourcing of certain raw material is critical. Even if the steel demand is entirely in India, but obviously we won't be able to produce that much steel. So on that specific point, are there any specific areas that you feel that we should be focusing on as a country to secure those supplies? Are there some different ways of approaching the issue as compared to what we've done historically?
Iron ore we have in abundance in the country. Coking coal is one area. For 1 ton of steel, around 700 kilos of coking coal is required. And we are importing around 80% of our requirement. Initially, it used to be solely, I'll say primarily from Australia. But of late, reliance on Australia has decreased because we are diversifying our imports of coking coal from other countries as well. So other countries are Russia, and because of the war going on there, and that again, sourcing from there is problem. Mongolia is another one. Mozambique is another one. So I'll say because of these kind of measures, and government is playing a very proactive role in collaborating with the other countries so that we are able to have our footprints there. And on account of that, now initially Australian import of coking coal used to be in the vicinity of 80%. Now they are down to 58%. So these kind of measures are happening. And when we are too much dependent on the outside world for resources, then they are the price givers, and we have to accept that price, whatever is available. So that adds to or diminishes our competitiveness.
Thank you. Let me come to you, Sanjay, and looking at it from, capital, at the end of the day, business is done by having access to capital. As you see the environment at this point in time, I think it'll be interesting to understand from you as a banker as to what is different in terms of how you evaluate the market today from a lending point of view, let's say, and which are the sectors you think are going to be more impacted with what we are seeing today, and second, from a growth point of view, what are the sectors that I think the banking industry is going to be looking at backing in some ways as part of the national economic agenda?
Thank you, Nitin. Good morning, everybody. So a very interesting point raised by you, Nitin, and let me start with some pretext of what the country has been doing over a period of time. Back 2014, the government mooted the idea of Make in India concept, basically to prioritize the manufacturing sector of the country and to make sure that the manufacturing sector of the country plays an important role in country's GDP. The idea at that time was to have at least 25% of our manufacturing GDP done through the manufacturing sector. But because of many other things coming into play, like COVID and other things, we could not achieve that by the targeted period of 2022. So that was moved ahead for 25. The government and the bank as such are taking a lot of effort in developing the MSME sector of the country. And MSME being the most important sector, which we think that is going to create a lot of difference in country's output, GDP output, and have an important role to play in global supply chain. The banks understand the criticality of providing credit on time to these sectors. And this is one of the area where we are striving hard through many digital push and even through pre-approved loans coming into play. We also understand that the cost of capital for our manufacturing sector is very high. If you take the cost of capital for a developed country, it ranges between 2 to 4%. That for China is 4 to 6%. Whereas for our country, it ranges between 8 to 12%. That itself is very high. And the banks are working on reducing the impact, how we can make available the capital to manufacturing sector and MSMEs so that their bottom line improves, their top line improves, and ultimately it gives impetus to the GDP of the country. So banks are into those things. The other thing which I also feel is that by virtue of banks' mix of liability that we have liability for shorter period. And for infrastructure impetus and for the impetus of manufacturing industries, we need long-term capitals. So government was conscious of it, and we made a new kind of NABFID coming into play for long-term capital providing for the industries. So banks are doing their job. They are onto it to make sure that the MSME sector of the country strives and does well.
Just speaking a little bit in the context of what's happening. So there are, issues of tariffs, and we know that we have a large market which is impacted at this point in time because of high tariffs, which makes us in some ways non-competitive or less competitive. But so there is going to be some financial stress as a result of that, I would imagine. And till the time that alternative markets are found, there will have to be some element of understanding and forbearance, if I may use that term, to deal with it, to keep the sector alive and able to sustain itself from a longer term perspective. Are there any specific challenges that you see as a banker which need to be addressed to make sure that we are able to deal with this particular situation?
Yeah. So we have seen COVID happening. COVID was a very big disruption which came for the banking industry as well as for the industry as such. Similar is the condition with this external tariff and protectionism coming up with the countries. This is going to impact more particularly the export-oriented units are going to be impacted by these kind of tariffs. The government is conscious and we are regularly engaging with the government and DFS to make plans for our export-oriented units to get some forbearance the way we got in the terms of COVID period, so that the industry survives. And as Sanjay was also speaking while his deliberations, that the country itself is a consumption mode country, and we do a lot of consumption inside. So the export units are also trying to see the Indian market more vigilantly, and also see alternate way of doing export other than US, because US has become has come as a disruption for the export units. So we are looking at it.
Thank you. If I may come to you, Satish Reddy, with as a person who's involved with the supply of talent. So just to get a sense from you, as you look at the academic sector, where do you see the maximum amount of employment opportunities that are coming up as for the students and for the next generation? And how do we as academicians are looking at making sure that we have the supply of the right quality and numbers to make sure that there is adequate employability of students and the supply for talent is met? Are there any sort of thoughts around that? How that is being looked at by the academic?
Thank you, Sanjay. As of now, as per the reports, probably India is producing around 10 million graduates every year, out of which probably around 45% is the employability right now. So there has been a huge gap between the academia and industry, but still, based on the new education policy, NEP 2020, if it has been implemented properly, there is every possibility we can improve the enrollment ratio into the education industry and as well as improve the employability skills. But still, because I come from a place called Kakinada, which is in South India and state of Andhra Pradesh, so do I have access to the industry is a question mark. And how many industries are ready to give the helping hand or holding hand for the institutes in the rural areas is another question mark. So if we're able to bridge this gap, I'm pretty much sure that 45% can be moved up to at least 70, 75%. And second thing is that nowadays, everyone is looking after IT, to be very frank. Now everyone is talking about AI, everyone is talking about data science, everyone is talking about computer science. So most of the enrollments into the education institutions is happening only with respect to the IT sector. But it is a responsibility to make sure other sectors, core sectors like mechanical or civil or electrical, it's not separate, that AI is also a part of these industries. If we can create an opinion among the student community, that is where the enrollment will be happening in each and every areas. Apart from the engineering sector, yes, pharmacy sector is there, business sector is there. All these sectors, they have their own takers because of the social awareness which they have about these industries and looking at the opportunities. But again, the student mindset is happening such a way that, the number speaks, because we as universities, or a lot of universities are being advertising a lot of things about, we got 1 crore package, we got 1.4 crore packages, and all these packages are coming only from the IT sector. So more students and parents are being fascinated towards the numbers rather than getting involved, what is happening in the industry, they're not aware of it, but being carried away by the numbers. This is which is happening right now.
So one of the challenge there's always there from an education point of view, and which directly impacts the supply and quality of supply of talent, is the access to right institutions, to the right quality of education. And I think there's a lot of talk with the developments in technology, including AI, that can be a big solution to address the issue of access, the issue of quality, and that could be, and given that India, of course, is a big services economy, and our IT and global capability centers together probably constitute the largest segment of our exports for the country. The continuous supply of good quality talent is critical for both those areas. So using technology, including potential AI, applications in AI, do you see any shift in the way that access to good quality education is given to students in the country, and does that in some way significantly also continues to enhance our competitiveness as a services sector export provider? I mean, how do you see that impacting?
I mean, AI has a very good impact, but the problem is, are the people ready to understand the impact of the AI is a challenge here. Now, for example, at the time of the COVID, when everyone was sitting at home, suddenly there's a sudden surge in the increase of the online education. But as per the report given by one of the big four, how many people has actually completed the course, it's only 25%. Though the enrollment was 4x. The number of people completing the course was only 25%. So the question here is, are we able to create them a need why they need to pursue their higher educations or the latest technologies is the challenge right now. Now, for example, I recently met one of my ex-students, who came to join her daughter in engineering in one of my, in my university. And that student I know pretty well. She got 8.0 CGPA when he was studying her engineering. But again, she's a housewife right now. So the question when I asked her, why didn't you pursue your higher studies? No need for me, because she's happy, she's a homemaker, husband is taking very good care of her. But despite of having the potential, when she was not able to see the need of pursuing the, higher educations or further educations, even though AI is there, other avenues are there, will they pursue it or not is one more challenge. And second problem is that, it's the language barrier. So most of the people in various regions, are not well versed with speaking in English or understanding English. The most of the content with respect to AI or anything is most of it's in English. So if it can be localized with the local languages, probably that is where we can increase the number of people pursuing the latest technologies, giving their hands into it.
Okay, so that you see the language as being a barrier to access despite technology developments. Okay, that's an interesting point. Coming back to you, Mr. Singh, so apart from, engineering is a large element of our exports from the country, moving beyond steel. Are there any specific sectors that you see that, we as a country should be focusing because we either have a competitive advantage in those sectors, or you think that, those are not fully realized because there are policy constraints or, constraints of other kinds? What are those sectors, and is there a broad sort of way for the government to look at it and see how we can build greater resilience in our economy by focusing on those sectors?
In fact, taking clue from last discussion about skilling, about education, we need to give a big push to manufacturing in the country. At one point of time, we used to go through data to say how many engineers are produced and how many of them are employable or not employable at all. So skilling is a very, very serious constraint problem in our country. And that has been addressed several times by our prime ministers also. This is an area which is fraught with, I'll say, information asymmetry, their market failure, what kind of models are going to succeed, what are not going to succeed. That's a serious, serious problem. So, and this is an era of skilling and innovation. So, in fact, innovation also comes from skilling. So and we are huge, a country which also exports a lot of talent to other countries. And in fact, knowledge economy of the world is being driven by Indians. So that is one area. Apart from that, what I'll say, this is an era of where we are witnessing climate change. We have seen this month also in our country, Himalayan fury, I mean, the way landslides occurred in the northern part of the country. And so climate change is a very, very important problem, and we need to address it. So decarbonization. I am from a sector which is termed as hard to abate sector. Hard to abate because there is long-term carbon lock-in, there is long lifespan of the technology which is used for steel making. So how to decarbonize? In that again, the main problem is, since we are a large steel manufacturing, steel producing country, of finance. Green finance is a very, very big problem. Recently, two economists, big economists of our country came out with a figure that how much fund is required to decarbonize the country, I mean, the fund requirement up to 2030. That is to the tune of $253 billion. So what are going to be the models for this kind of transition? How this green finance is going to come? I mean, my friend sitting in the right corner, he has to address to that what kind of green finance mechanism, blended finance can be one, where the government provides a hedging for that. So green production all over the world, you see, carbon is going to be the trade currency of the future. What is CBAM all about? Different kind of FTAs we are signing. Again, we have to produce goods according to the requirement, according to carbon footprints which are embedded in our products. So when they would be only tradable if the carbon content, carbon emission there is up to a tolerable kind of limit. So this is a big, big challenge. So, and this is going to be across everything, and especially about trade. Whether we are doing steel, we are, and of course, hard to abate sector are seriously impeded by this, but other sectors as well. So this is a very important aspect.
So instead of, just picking up on that point, and I wanted to actually talk about it as well today, is that instead of it being an impediment, the CBAM and all of those regulations which are coming in, US has a different view on it now, but potentially that can happen as well. Can it be turned into a strategic advantage by India versus being seen as an impediment? Is that a real possibility?
So in fact, government is preparing an ecosystem to make it an opportunity. For instance, a very important tool, very important smart tool, which has come into being in last 2 years, the CCTS, Carbon Credit Trading System, which has been put into place. What does it do? Small carbon amelioration, decarbonization measures which are taken by industry, they are rewarded through this. That's one measure. And a greenhouse, green hydrogen mission which has come into being. We have a good target where to give an initial push to the manufacturing sector to adopt and accept decarbonization measures. Then I'll specifically mention about steel. In steel, government has come out with a green steel policy. There is a green steel taxonomy which defines what is going to be green steel. But a couple of things are more to be done by the government, which government is working on that. Because when I interact with the government on a regular basis, I know of that. I mean, that is the creation of green steel market. That is the most important thing. And the market is there, where the steel is going to be. And they are going to be, market means that government is going to, has to play the role of the first consumer, most powerful consumer, through public procurement. So I'll say within the country, impetus is being provided to greening, to decarbonization, and especially I'll say the hard to abate sector. So definitely this is going to be provide us opportunity. But there are certain, I'll say, innate problems in hard to abate sector. They need to be overcome in due course of time.
So what you're saying is before we can, become a producer of green steel, for example, for global markets, we need to have a domestic market for that product, right? Of course, and then there's a cost issue and a financing issue, I understand that. But then coming to Sanjay, in terms of looking at it again from a financial services or banking point of view, I think there are two questions. One, I'm just picking up the point that Mr. Singh made in terms of availability of finance for these kind of initiatives, because they have a gestation period, maybe there are challenges in terms of how that is looked at by bankers in terms of feasibility, etc. And also, I think the second point I wanted to pick up was that which you had made earlier, that MSMEs, etc., are the drivers of growth for a country, unemployment. Are there any, and I just want to pick up the other point that was being made in terms of technology and saying that, how do you see the financial services evolving and how is technology is being used as a catalyst for making available financing opportunities or the whole process being streamlined so that credit is available to more people across the country? Of course, there are various government policies, but core banking is that sort of, also moving in that direction by making it easier to have access to finance. I think those 2 points.
So, two important things came up here. One, use of technology in banking. So, if you'll see 10 years back and what we are having today as the banking, the things have moved substantially ahead and bank has started using technology to utmost level. And the challenge which I feel right now for the bankers are to scale up our Finacle and core banking system to cloud native solutions. That is one of the major challenge that the bankers are facing. And we are trying to move on to the cloud native solutions because it is very easy to scale, very easy to cater to the need of the customer immediately, which the legacy system has its own problem. The other thing that bankers are also trying right now, as far as for the technology is concerned, is having an open banking system-like thing, so that we integrate very fast with the fintechs and the possibility of new solutions which fintech has gets integrated to our system immediately. That is one area where we are working, and as Union Bank of India, we are one of the pioneers in open banking system that we have with our solutions. We are also integrating the AI concept of AI ML in the use of day-to-day operations of the banking. The reconciliation has moved completely to RPA processes, and this is something that a bank has started leveraging fast. And you'll see a lot of public sector bank coming up because we do have legacy system, we do have legacy staff with us. So getting knowledge of all these computerized system and making them available with the customers as well as with the internal staff becomes a challenge for us at times. So we are doing that, and you'll see in coming 2-3 years, public sector banks will be competing hands-on with the private sector as well as the foreign banks coming to the country. As far as what Sanjay was speaking about the green financing aspect, the banks are doing it, and we do have green deposit concept, but there are certain challenges that the banker feel at times. Number one, the assessment of the green projects which is to be financed by us is one of the challenge which we feel, because a lot of green washing happens. So it is important to fade out that green washing of a project and identify actual green projects which are to be financed. Secondly, the green deposits that we take does not have, at present, does not have any incentivization for the customers who are giving it as a green deposit. That is another part. So the liability, the asset will only come when liability is there with us. So the banks are working, we are regularly engaging with our regulators to give us some differentiator in green deposit so that we can garner the liability and accordingly make use of it in the asset side of that.
Thank you. So just coming back to you, Mr. Reddy, so one is, of course, we talked about, talent supply as one of the key aspects. But I think one of the other areas which I just want to touch upon, because we talked about innovation, we talked about the challenges that we have and the transition that the industry needs to make in many areas. There's always a question about the industry academic partnership. For innovation, that's critical. Do you see progress over the last few years in the way it is moving? There's obviously a lot of questions in terms of, is it adequately incentivized? Are we doing enough, investing enough in terms of the R&D or in terms of innovation? How do you see that working today from an academic standpoint? And what would you like to see the industry and the government doing more to promote that?
The main key point here is, if you look at the last 10 years, obviously there has been a lot of change with respect to the R&D which is happening in the institutions. Now, first thing is government has changed its policies, reducing the prices for filing of the patents or encouraging research in the industry. But the thing is, the major challenge is, as Sir said, with respect to skilling and all these things. Now, when we are doing a point of research, how well are we connected to the industry to know the real pain points and where to work? And second thing, how the industry is actually welcoming the faculty members or the researchers to do the research on their pain points by sharing the data sets and all these things. Because sharing data sets is always a concern for the industry. It can be sensitive at some point of time. But again, until and unless we maintain that relation with the industry, the research can't be taken forward. Point number one. Point number two is that, with the NEP National Education Policy, yes, right now there has been a lot of interaction, has been improved with the industry compared to the last before 2020. But again, are the faculty ready to, are the faculty ready to take up these projects? Why? Because with respect to academia, there has to be a change within the institutions itself. For example, a professor should have 12 hours of workload per week, remaining time, expecting that he would spend his time in research or producing some publications. But actually, are they doing it is one more challenge.
Is that, sorry to intervene there, is that an internal governance of the institutions, or is it a regulatory solution? Where do you see the solution there?
I can say from both the parties. Why? Because there are certain guidelines given by UGC and AICT say this much workload should be given. Now expecting them to spend more time with respect to research, but in reality it's a self-driven thing from the faculty as well. But again, coming back your question. Sir was talking about green finance. Now our Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu was talking about quantum computing. He wants to make Amravati as a quantum valley. Now people are talking about AI. So with respect to all these developing areas, how the people who are there in the academic industry, without the exposure to the, what is happening in the industry, how they can teach the students. So that is where, NEP has given a provision that for every 3 years, faculty should be trained in the industry at least for 6 months or 1 year, so that they'll come to know or they'll be aware of what is happening in the industry. In turn, they can train the students. So if the industries are ready to open up for the faculty members to make them as a part of their team and, throwing them the challenges which they're facing, yes, the research can be on the next level for sure. But again, both the ways. Is the industry opening up, or are the education industry ready to deploy their faculty members with a dire shortage of talented faculty members in the industry?
Thank you.
I'll add to what about research, because I have had fairly large experience in the government in heading a research outfit. That is Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So the problem in research is, I'm talking about impactful research. We have brilliant scientists, brilliant professors, but first of all, identification of the right problem. That is only available with the users. I'm talking about the industry. In ICR, it used to be with the farmers. So what is the problem that is required to be addressed? That's number one. And number two, how to give an impetus to high risk and high reward research. That is the core of the problem. And because what invariably happens, the high risk means that anybody who is part of the government outfit, whether it's universities or in the research institutions, they would not easily accept those kind of research. And secondly, I'll say one has to learn regarding it from the startups. Startups can quickly rebound. They fail once, then quickly rebound, because that is also part of their structure. So these are the kind of things which are required to be put in place for research to be really impactful.
Thank you.
So just on continuing with this thing, again, startups, no doubt, has been on a growing graph in the last few years. Now, the reason why it is, again, they were able to identify the real pain points and started building solutions for that. But again, is there a system where we can support these startups when they're in the student level? As Sir said, probably 1 out of 100 will go to the next level, remaining 99 startups will fail. So is there an ecosystem within the university and with respect to the government policies where we can support these kids when they're in the student age if there's a failure? Can that be considered as some kind of credit points or incentivizing the student community to make sure that just go along with that? It's a hard journey to be on a startup, that is for sure.
So you create a safe environment for entrepreneurship and innovation. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. Thank you, Mr. Reddy and Mr. Narayan. That was very interesting conversation. Thank you.